Good evening. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. May I get your attention? Can I have the guys behind these to come towards this direction, please, so that we can begin the event. Please, let's settle down. Sylvia, I want you quiet because you are the president of this. My name is Solomon Bicha. I'm going to be the MCA for today for this great launch of the Architects Alliance. That I'm going to be the MC for today. I don't know whether I was chosen because I come from Alliance. Thank you very much. Now, a couple of house rules. This particular building, the place for the ladies is to your left. Yesterday I came here, unfortunately I used the ladies, so I think the gents should be on this other side. Thank you very much. Can we have the band start for us before the process begins? The band today is Silhouette Band. Can I have a clap, guys? We have a cash bar at the back of the place, so you can go there and take your order and have a drink. So Silhouette, please get it. Thank you. Silhouette Band. Silhouette Band. Let's have you on stage. Thank you, Mr. DJ. Before we begin, I need to acknowledge a couple of people here. Our guest speaker, Mr. Pielo, karibu sana. He's one man I came to learn. His Kiswahili is very good. Where I come from, I used to think people from Nyanza can't speak Kiswahili. Asante sana. Architect Kungo, karibu sana in this particular event. And all other distinguished guests. I know we have several groups here. I think I've seen a lot of people who seem to be my age. I think these are the people who finished university in 1970. Like Arthur are there. But thank you very much. The group from JKU card, please stand up and wave to us all over here. I think you're very many, but your voice is very low. The guys who were in JKU card in the 70s, Winnie, you are there. The guys from Nairobi University, all of you, please stand up and give a shout. And all other guests, thank you very much. To Space and Style, Winnie, thank you very much for hosting us. And for the record, I helped Winnie pass her exam with a promise that she's going to marry me. I'm still unmarried. So to begin the event, I shall welcome Architect Sylvia Kasanga, Senator. I've never stood next to a senator in my life, so please welcome. The floor is yours.
Are you happy now?
I hope the photographer can.
Thank you, Solo. Please, a big hand to our saxophonist today, Silhouette. Thank you so much. We love young talent. TAA is about supporting young talent. And I just want to bring to your attention there's some exceptional artwork that is inside this little house. And I'll ask the artists if they can bring it out so that you can appreciate what young talent in Kenya today is doing. Really amazing stuff. Good evening, everyone. So this is a wonderful evening. It's a wonderful day. This is about architects, but we have lots of friends. Our friends are here, and I couldn't be more pleased to have them come and support us. So I'm grateful. I want to recognize my teacher here, Dr. Kabue. Thank you so much for coming. Professor Dr. Kabue. Professor, yes, very many titles. Thank you so much for coming, as well as all our other guests. And everyone, by the way, just so that you should know, we do not take it for granted that however you came, from wherever you came, whether you are whipped, whether you were, coerced to come, but the fact that you're here today as an architect, as I address the architects, we at TAA do not take it for granted, because we want to speak to you today. This is about you. My name is Sylvia Mweni Kasanga. I'm an architect, and my classmates are here, I hope. Where are my classmates? I did go to school. By the way, Professor, I went to school. I see one hand. Vicky, we were in school with you. You're not raising your hand. Yeah, I have evidence that I went to school. Nilisoma. I'm an architect. I'm an arbitrator with the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators. I serve there as the treasurer this year at the board. And I serve in other boards, several other boards. I am in Architectural Association of Kenya. Of course, I'm a member there for 20 years now. And of course, everyone, we're in Borax. Those of us who are in Borax, we're all in Borax. Yeah, and I did serve in the 12th Parliament as a nominated senator. It is obvious from which region I came from. It is obvious which party supported me. PLO, you said in another interview, you said, why do we bother calling them political parties? We should just call them tribal parties. So the tribal party that supported me to Parliament, I served for 5 years in the 12th Parliament. But of all my accolades, on a serious note, besides, of course, being a parent, the one that I treasure the most is that of being an architect. I treasure that. And when I went to Senate, Professor, I had a battle with the clerk because I was insisting that the architect title must come before the Senate title, and I would not budge until he had to get a caucus to speak to me and tell me that actually the Senate title is national, so it has to go fast. But we had to introduce the brackets so that at all times my architect title is recognized in everything that I do. So that is how far, that's how much I treasure by being an architect. And I love being called an architect, even if they cannot pronounce it. Even if they call me architecture or architecture or whatever, that is my title. I deserve it. I worked hard for it. God knows how hard we worked to get that title. And I hope you feel the same way that I do. Talking about TAA, how do we find ourselves here? I think it's good I give a bit of a background. Because being a senator without a job, I had time. After having lost election, I had time. And I kept wondering, where are my people? How come I don't see my people? The whole time I was in Senate, I barely interacted with architects. Barely. Without a doubt. And I remember at the time, when Mugure was our president at AK, we were pushing the building professionals bill. We were trying to bring all the built environment professionals under one act of Parliament. And every time she would call a meeting, it's the architects who didn't show up. So would scuttle the meeting, because how do we have a meeting and the architects are not there? Yet we are the ones who are supposed to be right at the top. So fast forward, senator without a job decides to look for her classmates. And we enjoyed some nyama choma somewhere along Thika Road. And then we just wondered, because as we were sharing all our challenges, do other architects feel the same way we are feeling? Why don't we look for these other architects? So then we had the Architects' Cup of Tea on 15th March 2023. If you remember, for those who attended, it was just this year. It feels like a long time ago, but it was just this year. The architects, we had a cup of tea at Fairview. And it was like a aha moment. First, it was a meeting of great minds who had not seen each other for a long time. It was also, interesting to share our experiences, because we picked ourselves out, a critical cohort, those who have been in the industry for about 20 years plus. So it was interesting sharing our experiences. What are our challenges? And I can tell you from the first instance, because we had a Google spreadsheet where we were sharing our ideas, our challenges were so many. So many. And that's the fact that we met for a cup of tea. People were able to exhale. We don't have spaces where we meet and speak and share and lobby for our issues. Capacity building is not there. I'll tell you, because I'm in the arbitration circles. My friend Eunice Lumalas is here. Eunice, hi. We are arbitrators. The lawyers and the arbitrators are constantly caucusing. We are constantly capacity building. We are constantly looking out for what's next, what's new, how do we position ourselves. I have been missing my fellow architects in such fora. So very quickly, TAA, chips fell into place, and ExCom came into place. Somehow chips fell into place. I tell you, when an idea has come, its time has come, you cannot stop it. We have an ExCom, and you will meet them. Very dedicated, extremely passionate. Because we're trying to put something that will last for the ages to come. We're trying to put a base that is strong for the agenda that we have, which we are going to unveil here today. But this dedicated team of people has brought us to this place where we are here today, where we are saying, architects of 20 years plus, we have been missing in action. Kweli urongo? No, kweli urongo? Let's be sincere, we've been missing in action. A lot is happening. And because we are missing in action, we are feeling the pain. We are wondering, where is the affordable housing conversation happening and there's no mention of an architect? How is that even possible? Yet this is our forte. We have an act of parliament, PLUPA, that puts the physical planner right there in front. The guy who is going to come and, approve your drawings. I mean, come on, architects. We are missing in action. I think one of the greatest things we can say that I can speak to on behalf of the TAA ExCom is that we've realized that there's a lot of work to be done. Our country is suffering. We saw this great debate on affordable housing happening, and that's just one thing. For those of us like myself who are fond of rural areas, there's architects needed in the rural areas, seriously. There's conversation that architects need to touch on when it comes to land tenure systems and policies, because if we continue subdividing our plots of land, when will we be able to feed ourselves? What happened to rural planning? Yet, we go, we travel, we see what other countries are doing. Why are we not doing it here? I think architects are the ones who are going to drive this agenda. I believe the way we are crafted as architects, by virtue of either our training or the work that we do, we are more than wachoraji. I know how you feel when you're told you're just a mchoraji. It's like an ultimate insult, because your work is not just to draw. That is probably the smaller component. By the time you draw, you have advised, you have given a vision, then you become an artist, an accountant, you're a project manager, you're negotiators, you're people managers because you have to manage people dynamics, you're even marriage counselors, true or not true, you're mentors, you're teachers, you go into construction details, yeah? You go even engineering drawings, sometimes you have to understand them, true or not true. Services, you have to understand all those things. You are so stretched as an architect. Even branding issues, you are so set apart from a lot of other citizens in this country. And because of that, you cannot be missing in action in a national dialogue. You cannot. We must participate actively in the national dialogue. And I mean national. I'm not just saying just physical planning and affordable housing. We have to be everywhere. Because we have the command, we have the skill set, we can speak, we are analyzers, we are critical thinkers, we are dispute resolvers. And the way I've been trying to fish arbitrators, I can't get architect arbitrators. We have to go back to school and take up our space. We are the ones who can arbitrate the best for construction matters, because it's something you're constantly doing on a daily basis. Easy to do, even mediation. Because I think the new, if I'm not wrong, our new forms of contract will have mediation as part of dispute resolution. So we will need mediators who are architects. So We need to wake up, I think, and that is the reason why we are here as TAA. We have watched I think construction project managers have put a bill. There's a bill circulating. I hope you have all seen it. And it puts the construction manager ahead of the architect. Are you going to answer to a construction manager? On your own design, your own creation, your own vision? Are you? You know? I know a lot of us, we are disenchanted. I think times have beaten us. The economy has really taken a toll, especially on our profession. But as always, I'm always very hopeful. I'm a very hopeful person, and I know the tide will change. This tide will change. But as it is changing, we must make sure we are part of that change. We must make sure that going forward, even the mama in the village who's building her mud hut, which I hope we are going to move away from as a country of 3 trillion Kenya shillings, we shouldn't be having mud huts today, but if it is going to become an advised form of construction, then that mama should know that there exists an architect and that I need an architect. That every time there's a conversation on anything that touches on the lives of human beings, that the architect must be called upon, because the view of the architect is critical. This is where we must go. And we will not go there quietly. It will not be easy. There are those who've been running ahead of us, and we have to catch up with them and beat them to it. So we are calling us today here, architects. This is a forum for architects, by architects, who are realizing that it is time we need to engage. We cannot be quiet anymore. Our children want to become architects. Most of you here, I know, at least you have a child who wants to take after you. What is this environment you're leaving your child today? What are we going to do about it? This is the rallying call of the reason why TAA is here today. I don't take it for granted that you've made time to be here. We are so happy that you've at least taken your time to come and listen and hear. And for our seniors who are here, we appreciate you. And we will be happy to take advice as we go. But we are here and we want to engage. And as we engage, seeking our space in the national discourse, we're also going to be socializing amongst ourselves at our age group. We will catch up. We will capacity build from inside, because we realize there's a need for capacity building. We look for these opportunities for capacity building. We'll hold hands and form partnerships that can take us forward. And because I'm conscious about time, the timekeeper has not looked at me. Timekeeper, you at work? Really? He's not looked at me. So can I continue? No, he's aware. I'll just take this opportunity to welcome you all here today. Let's listen, and when we are done, let's engage. Join us in this discourse. It's a good discourse. More important, let's keep showing up. Let's keep showing up. Showing up is the most important thing. That you've shown up today, already we've taken a step forward. Let's keep showing up. Let's engage. And the more we engage, even if we don't see the results today, we will see the results tomorrow or the day after, or our children, at least you can be sure, will certainly see the results. Let's be brave. Let's be bold. Let's not be scared. So thank you very much for your time, and I welcome you all to this function.
Thank you very much, Sylvia. I'm surprised to know that a senator can be actually jobless. I've never heard of such a thing. And I'm also very surprised that Sylvia says she's a rural. You don't look rural at all to me. Now, Vicky Karuga, I'm inviting you to give us the vision and mission of TAA. And unfortunately, Sylvia as a politician, took a bit of your time. So you'll have to be a bit brave.
I think you can be confident that I haven't learned the skills of politics, so
I will really try to keep time. But I was telling the timekeeper, how do you sell a vision with no time? You know, vision, I have to win your heart, your head, appeal to emotionally, all the things that we're talking about. For me to get you on board, and then, you know, we can start that, aluta, continua, yeah? So I'm a bit digital, and because I have seen on TV the what are they called? The pitfalls for not following the script, I will try and stick to the script so that we can have an engaged conversation. So my role here is just to tell you now about the future, now that we've seen where we are. And for us, when we sat down on 15th of March, 2023 this year, we realized that we are really an introverted lot. We look at our space. I think maybe it's a building thing, I don't know. And so for us to really make a difference, one thing became very clear, is that people take you seriously when you take them seriously. If you want to make an impact, you have to take the community's needs seriously. And that's something that, because of, I guess, the very nature of who we are and we're solving our problems, we kind of got stuck in that middle area and forgot that, first and foremost, we have a community to serve. And so when Sylvia says that we started thinking about how far should this impact be, it wasn't tomorrow, it wasn't 1 year, it was our children and their children. Because of course change doesn't happen overnight. And so what kind of things would we be able to do that would impact the now? I know the pockets are feeling pain, but more importantly, the way that architecture is portrayed and the way that it impacts. I mean, everywhere you go, there's a building. There's nowhere you can experience life without a building. So we looked at 3 pillars that we think will be the places we'll be focusing our time. And the first one is advocacy. And we feel that in this space, we have not been as active as we should be. So we're going to look at arenas that we can make a difference. And this includes, for example, looking at the various bills that are in place, looking at the issues, not just the architectural issues, but community issues that are in place that we can have a voice over. And that is why one of the committees we have is actually advocacy. And then our advocacy is going to be based and grounded on a think tank. So we have a whole section of what we're doing based on research, writing papers, something that we think we have not done really well, not only as architects, but as a country. But opinion shapers have always been people who take the time to study the situation, ask for opinions, debate their opinions, and slowly, when we release a paper, as the Architects Alliance, it's taken seriously. And that means that anything that is passed because of a paper that we have done comes from well-grounded research, comes from people whose focus is on giving the community back solutions that really work. And then the third pillar is that we realized we didn't have a home. I know we all think that AAK is our home. It is our home. But it's also the home of engineers. It's also the home of quantity surveyors. It's also the home of landscape architects. It's also the home of, it's a built environment home. When we met on the 15th of March, we realized we didn't have a place to have our own, can I say, beaching session? Productive, yeah? And we needed that space so badly where we can talk about our issues without feeling as if we were belittling other people. Because it's true, they are our issues. And so the third pillar is going to be the home of architects, of like-minded people. And so today, what we're really selling is a home of people who want to dedicate their lives. Don't worry, us guys, I guess we are not here to upset the status quo. I think there have been a lot of lobby groups and advocacy groups and think tanks that have served purpose in legislature, in supporting the legal bodies that we have, in just providing direction, because that's what they focus on. They don't focus on politics as much. Of course, there's lobbying and caucusing, but they become a very integral part of the change that people want to see. And so we want to change the way we think, and we want to change the way you think, and we want to change the way that woman with a bad heart thinks when they hear the word architecture. And that change shall not happen when we talk about buildings. It shall happen when we actually articulate issues that speak to them. That's when they shall say, we need an architect. We need an architect. So, before I'm thrown out, mambo ni mata? Mambo ni mata? Ya kwanza? Advocacy. If this is your strength, you're very, very welcome. Ya pili? Think tank, resources. If you know partners we can bring on board to help us, please come on board. Ya tatu? Home of architects, and this one I cannot undersell. When we are a home of architects, we shall start seeing the places we need to be to make the difference that we want to make. I hope I have done justice to this speech, and thank you very much for your time. We'll see you later.
Thank you very much, Vicky. I don't think you are an architect, you should be a marketer. I'm actually quite convinced about it. I also want to recognize one good friend of mine called Manu. Please stand up. I went to one of the buildings he designed. He told me, park at your own.
Good evening, viewers. This is KTN.
Sorry for interrupting your special speech. For those who are watching us from abroad, you can watch us from the Facebook page for TAA, and we have the mainstream media streaming right now. That's how big we are. Karibu.
And I thought Solo was not a Jaluo all this time. I take this opportunity to welcome you all tonight. You have been welcomed twice over already. So this is Architects for Architects. Does not mean that anybody else in the room who is not an architect is not an architect. We are all architects here tonight. For as long as you're within this room, you're an architect. So we are going to discuss a few architectural issues. Very summarily, I believe that the reason why the room is full the way it is because the architects are feeling a pinch somewhere, somehow. So we shall address some of the issues that have come to our notice in our own practices, or we have experienced them ourselves, or we are sitting outside looking in and seeing that it is affecting the rest of the populace. So tonight I'm going to introduce a small panel of discussion. I will start by introducing my senior, somebody who taught most of us here, somebody to whose desks there were crits that probably made you cry. Tunawajua, those who had 2 drawings for the whole year. I see you. I will introduce Senior Architect Philip Kungu, and I will ask him to rise and join me on stage. Please take a seat. Yes. In order of seniority, or maybe not at all, because you know, as we grow older, lines become very blurred. So I don't know who came before who. But I will next introduce Architect Mushiri Waititu, who is not senior to me, but senior to most of those who are in the room. Please take a seat. Next, I will introduce a very controversial architect by any Yard possible. After there. The king of controversy. Please join us on stage. Whatever he's whispering, please, is controversial. He's claiming to have done all my drawings in 5th year. That is not how I remember it. And lastly, from the education sector, I will introduce Dr. Architect Joseph Kedogo. I thought I saw him earlier. Are you in the room? Oh, he's right here. Thank you. So having said that, I'm not sure whether this really should be here. Please, take this away. Okay. Let it just go one step down. That, for architectural terms, in architectural terms, for those who may not know, is called managing the optics. So I will start where we started. And I will start with a question. Can we have more microphones, please? I believe that we have some more in the room. Thank you very much. Ordinarily, when we introduce ourselves, we start with our history. You start with, my name is so-and-so, I was born in the year this and that, and so on and so forth. So we shall start from where we started. And I will ask our senior to give us a brief history of what architecture looked like in his time. Yes. We know what it looks like now. It doesn't look very good. We'd like to hear what it looked like in your time.
Good evening to everyone. Can you hear me? You can. Thank you very much. I don't know whether I should introduce myself or not, but I think it's enough that Irene is here. She is literally, like many others, the work of my hands, so to speak. Architecture during our time and what it is now. It's a bit of a difficult question because depends on how you look at architecture. Architecture is yeah. This is Kenya. Important people come after everyone else, and then they are asked to greet their people. I mean no offense. It's also good to just get a little laugh when you put your thoughts together. Yeah, architecture, the way it is today is you need to look at architecture in terms of what it is doing and the issues that it's addressing. And I think when I went to architectural school, I wanted to become a good architect, be a good designer, produce buildings that people would love to live in and work in. And I was addressing the brief of my clients in terms of the things they wanted and things they thought they could have. In fact, one of my lecturers who died just, I think, early this year, James Archer, told us that the work of an architect is not only to give a client what they want, but what they never dreamt they could have. And that thing has stuck in my head for so many years. So yes, we are answering to a brief of a client. The brief may be functions, maybe, money. There are all sorts of considerations. And as an architect, you preoccupy yourself with that. And that is how we gained entry into architecture. And that's how we saw architecture at that time. And we talked this, if you want to call them elitist, we'll talk about space, form, and order, and all these sort of things. But then I left that, I went into practice, and now I have been in practice for slightly over 35 years. And what I found out along the way, it really doesn't matter how good a designer you are if you can't address society's problems. And architecture must be seen in that context. It's not about doing flashy buildings and everybody looks up, but if they are not addressing the fundamentals of society, if there's poverty in society, that is your business. If people are suffering in terms of their health, that is your business. If I just saw on Al Jazeera just now, and I would recommend that you go and see, there's an architect who's talking about architecture being used as an instrument of torture. Why? Because they were driven out of their land. The Israelis came and they had architects who designed buildings to answer to that brief. And the brief was a brief of displacement. These are real issues in modern life. So you cannot talk about just designing good buildings that work, but also buildings and an environment that addresses the current problems that we have. And we have so many of them. So architecture, by just that, must be different. And it certainly is. And I can tell you that those are the issues that us seniors are grappling with today. Are we answering societal issues? Are we contributing? Or are we trying to make the world a much better place? So I would just take that angle, although there are so many things we could talk about. But for me, that is fundamental. Maybe because of age, I've realized that my contribution to architecture must address societal problems. And I'm glad that I heard the president talking about where are architects in all this housing thing that we are talking about. It's not just issue of numbers. It's not we are going to build 500,000 units of houses, right? You're going to build 500,000 units of houses that privacy is compromised. People who have big families. I was just joking with PLO. PLO is my friend for very many years, and I wish I would have time to give a little testimony about him. And we were just joking and saying that where him and I have reached is the time to look for other companions in life. We've reached. Now, how is the housing issue addressing some of these problems that PLO and I were going to have? You get what I mean? Maybe I stop there. I can come in later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senior. That was very well articulated. And I look at PLO and I look down. I will now go to one of the issues that we grapple with as architects in the room and in our practices is the issue of our drawings being approved by the county governments or not. It has been a very, very painful, it's been a very big pain point for us because a lot of the times the process is very long drawn and translucent, for lack of a better, opaque, for lack of a better word. And we find that our strengths, like our president said earlier, we are not there. We do not exist in the spaces that we should. There is this monster, and I will call it that for lack of a better word, called the PLUPA, which stands for the Physical and Land Use. Yes, I know it touches all of you. Kindly finish. What does it mean? Yes. Now, I will address my question to Senior Architect Mushiro Ititu. In view of the current circumstances where our approvals take all the time that they do, what is your opinion of the composition of the urban planning technical committees that are tasked with approving our drawings?
Thank you, Irene. everyone here at least has submitted a drawing to an urban, they call them urban, but sometimes you wonder. My hometown of Nyeri struggles to know whether it's a village or but that's a different case altogether. I went to submit some plans somewhere in Kiambu the other day. And I'm ushered to an office where 3 people were seated. And I ask who, and they say hello, and I start chatting, and I say I need to submit a drawing. And the 3 of them, there was a planner, there was a health officer, and there was an engineer. They didn't know I was the architect, so they tell me, you bring 3 copies of your drawings, and we look at them. And I ask them who is going to then look at them. And they tell me, I'll look at my drawings. I'll look at your drawings and make sure that they qualify. Now, I don't know in which planet we came from, where a health officer, this is somebody who studied public health to diploma level, is approving drawings which were done by ourselves. I don't know where that came from, but it is part and parcel. And when you go back into history is when you realize where all these things came from. These are legislative relics which have been carried over by former county. They used to be, what were they before they became counties? Yeah.
City council.
And health officers came into being, yes, Kanjo. They came there because of things like cholera or outbreaks of that you needed to have, the house needed to have enough light. So they're very ritualistic in how they look at the drawing. Does it have, there's that thing you write on your drawings, PV. So this guy, his job is to tell you, after looking at your drawings for 2 weeks, that your drawing does not have a PV. And so it is rejected. Go back with it. And this is a space which a few years ago, the ones who are senior to us will tell us that even things like getting a change of user, the architect is the one who used to write to the county, and they will be the ones who used to write to them and tell them, I need to change this user for this reason. And the person who was your counterpart on the other end, the Nairobi County actually had a department. It was called Architecture and City Planning. When the Plupa came in, the architects were all tossed to one side. I saw architect, there's an architect in here who works at the county. He'll tell us how many architects we have in the Nairobi County. They cannot be more than the fingers on one hand. Now, it creates a problem. Earlier this year, we did do a protest note to the County of Nairobi. What has been happening is that the handover from the Nairobi Metropolitan Service, that was what, NMS, when they handed over to this function of approval back to the county, they did not hand over the whole environment for the payments. And so they've been receiving payments, but the payments they're collected by KRA, so they don't get to the county. And it has created a bottleneck, of which I think this year alone, I don't know if they've started approving, but the whole year I have drawings which have been sitting in City Hall since October. Now, the whole environment is always presupposed that the county is out there to do its job. What do you do when the county or your local authority is not doing what they're supposed to do? And so stuck there are billions and billions worth of projects which are simply not moving. We are not creating jobs, we are not selling cement, simply because somebody is not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And these are the things we really want to start challenging. That the PLUPA as it exists it has too many inherent flaws. And the people who are feeling the heat are these guys who are sitting here. I'm sure all of you have gone to negotiate approval of your drawing with somebody who inherently does not understand what you are telling them. They're looking at things to tick some boxes. Or even when the guys who come to the site, the inspectorate guys, they are completely disconnected from the guys at the planning level. So the guys who are coming to the site are usually, for lack of better term, mascaris. So they're asking you, where is your approval? They don't even know. You're asking them, you should be telling me you have the database. There's no connection. So one of the things we really, really want to start challenging is how this whole system is working. In many major cities, actually, even you as a registered architect are allowed to go to site and certify, so long as you meet certain criteria. And it is incumbent upon you. If you break some of the rules, then you are the one to blame. So a lot of cities actually have a self-governing mechanism where you guys go and do that. I don't know why we have allowed, I could go into the politics or the history, but for a long time, what we want to do now is challenge the status quo that exists. Why are we still being governed in a way that is completely at variance with what we have learned? So I hope I've answered your question, Irene.
Very comprehensively. Okay, I will move on to the next challenge that I think is, and it's very dear to the hearts of a lot of us in this room because we experience it every day. It comes with the generations behind us. How many of us get very shocked by the quality of interns that come into our offices? By a show of hands, roughly by a show of hands. There's definitely a realization that there's a big problem. There's a big problem in the way the training is done. There's a big problem in the way the training is received. What we have been experiencing is that we are finding ourselves literally going back to being interns, because the interns that come into our offices are our bosses. So on my right, we have Dr. Architect Joseph Kedogo, who is in education. He is the chair of the Department of Architecture at the Technical University of Kenya. Dr. Kedogo, please tell us, where is the problem?
Is there any problem? I think there's no problem to start with. That's why you come in. You have always heard of these, is it quarter-baked graduates? So that's the question which begs it. They say half-baked, quarter-baked, full-baked, I don't know. What is the work of the universities or the colleges? What is the work of the training institutions? What's the role of the employers and the parents and other things? You see, this problem of you being as a parent, one person parenting a person is a very modern phenomenon. In our country, I remember I could not dare make a mistake because I had so many dads and moms all over the town, wherever. If I did something wrong, I'll be taught the right way. Which brings the idea of mentorship. Yes, training can be one thing. We are sometimes stuck with curricula which maybe was not meant for this environment. it's been almost, is it 60-something years since we gained became an colonist, we gained independence, or we became an colonist state, let me just say it. But we are still clinging to some of the ideals that are not ours. And then we have really lost our ideals. That's the beginning. And then our morals are being eroded and all the other things, which brings mentorship. So how do you train these students in all these levels, in the universities, in the colleges, in even apprenticeship and wherever? That talks to something with curriculum change, curriculum reform, which all of us have to play a role in it. It's not a role of a few people sitting somewhere and a few stakeholders and doing this. The pain you feel by being made an intern instead of being the other way around, maybe it could stem from that. Do you teach them enough morals, which is very important, ethics, and all those things? And then when they come to our work or interact with these architects, even as clients and as employers, how do we mentor them? See, mentorship has been defined as this passing off of knowledge from more experienced or knowledgeable person to somebody who is supposed to be learning, like lifting them. And so mostly it happens out of the normal formal employment or employee relations. But it should take place because I call him my mwalimu, my senior. In other forums, he always hammers me when I go the wrong way. So he has mentored me a lot. So I'm proud to say that. And I'm seeing other seniors around who mentor me around, including Daktari here. So there's this mentorship, passing of this vital information, which is very important, beyond the drawing, beyond the design, because life is not more than design, more than the drawings, more than the good buildings, as he said. There's more to it. And again, when it comes to mentorship, I can say, I'll quote our lady who said, Mambo ni matatu. There's always, and I think this is something we should take from here. In life, we should always strive to have this type of people in your life. You should strive to have somebody you learn from, somebody who will mentor you, a senior. We should always be feeding from somebody who is above you. That's a very key relationship. That's why we'll grow to thing. Then secondly, you must always have a peer. That's why we come in as peers. As you sit here, I can see a few people who we had a lot of suffering together. We used to call it architecture. And I think we're still suffering and enjoying together. That's the second level, peer to peer. So you have the upper level where you feed, you drink from the knowledge above. And then you have peer to peer, challenging other because you go through the same challenges on a day-to-day basis and grappling with these issues which you don't have answers. And maybe that is why you are here, actually, because of these answers, the common problems you are feeling. And also strive to get somebody you can mentor always. I can say I'm privileged. Parents throw to me young people to mentor. But all of us should look for this relationship. We always enriched our juniors and also by our peers and those above us. And eventually, if I can also add something very important, is that what's the purpose of mentoring? Mentoring is to not make somebody to be more like you or to have your values or that. Is to make them better, the best they could be. And if you make clones of yourself, then you have failed. They should be better, much better than us. And you see, if I can talk about experience, you have done, or my life and my life of my colleagues, I don't think I'm very proud of everything you have done or gone through. And I'm proud of other things. Why should I allow my juniors to go through the same things? I'm not hesitate to say this. I know these architects, we went through the same training. We left the university damaged goods. We are psychologically traumatized. And that's why we find architects sometimes they behave in a funny way. It's the training. Don't blame him, he was one of the good teachers. But whenever I'm giving a crit and I feel the temptation to trample on a model or to tire a drawing, sometimes I remember, is it what am I putting this young generation? Is it torture? Is it is a lesson being passed through. Now, just to say this, it's a concerted effort, and it's the work of all of us here. It's not, so when somebody comes to your office, it's your work to try to pass the best that can be and make them avoid the pitfalls we are going through. And I'm being tempted to quote, since I saw PLO here, I'm tempted to quote something he said. It's something, I think, what somebody, he said, exercise caution in your business affair, for the world is full of trickery. But let this line virtue that there is. Many persons strive for high ideals, and every are full of heroism. And I see these heroes here. The people who are here are this. So I think to quickly answer your question is this. The heroes and these people who strive for high ideals, beyond this treasure that and strive for money and trying to get rich quickly and building buildings without a plan. There are people who are here who are striving for high ideals and looking for those ideals. And that becomes those people who are seated here to see how they can quickly best pass these good ideals to the future generations, even as they draw from those above and also share and spar with their peers to make themselves and sharpen each other as iron sharpens iron. Thank you.
So I will just summarize what Dr. said in very many words. He's just saying, you guys, don't die with your knowledge. Eh? Just pass it on. You're going to die. Please pass on that knowledge before you die. Senior spoke about it very briefly, and he just touched on it and said, there are all these spaces coming up. No green spaces, no ventilation. In his days, that wouldn't happen. But it has become our norm. It's become our daily normal today. Adair, tell us how you feel about this conundrum.
Are you sure? Thank you very much. I mean, it puts a lot of pressure once you've been referred to as a controversial architect. I know at one point, and Mumu was giving me a lot of pressure and saying that I'm sketching a lot, and people are saying he's not an architect because he doesn't sketch. But I'm sketching because I am not an architect. So at one point I had a little time, I was sketching, and I sketched some view of Kilimani area, and I posted it on Instagram. And I was very careful in how I posted it, and I started seeing words like Kayoleshwa, there were certain things, people complaining about the densities and all that, and my good friend Ati was one of them. And I told Ati, this is very interesting, because if you go through the history of Kileleshwa, it was actually African villages at some point. And then when they needed to expand the city and get government offices, they moved the Africans out. I think they struggled whether to go to Pumwani or not because the Indians were there, so they went to Majengo, Matope, Sirudi Tena. But now they're back, and they're back in Kilimani. Unfortunately, they're also back there with some Chinese. But I was saying they're back, and really the issue that we should have been dealing with is not complaining, but we should have been anticipating. And we should have been the ones in the forefront of designing for this density. All of us were trained to hate density. Let's be very honest about that. And we were trained to hate density because I think the strongest town planning factor, which was the 1948 master plan, done incidentally by a guy called Professor L.W. White. It's not a pun, from the University of Cape Town, which espoused neighborhood concepts and neighborhood plannings. And when I did my 5th year and I was doing neighborhood concepts, I'm reflecting and asking what happened. So when Kilimani started getting 4 floors, we were worried. We were like, that's too much density. Suddenly now it's at 18 floors, we are worried. That's too much density.
But what I was saying is that really the problem is that as architects, we missed out, and I think Senior mentioned this. We missed out in anticipating this. For so long, we were receiving projects, we were receiving clients, and we were at the tail end. Planning, inbuilt in planning, is advocacy. And understanding that planning is also politics. And understanding the entire politics of a situation. But what the planners cannot do is come down to the fine print when they get to the action plans and when they begin to design the actual street character, the parks you're talking about, what does it mean to go put these 20-story buildings with walls around them? Yeah, what's going on? And really, the reason why Ati is saying I'm controversial is I said that's our fault. All this has happened because we sat back and we said we will work, and I think Mshiri has mentioned it. Plupa happened. They always say there's a plan. Counties are required to do integrated strategic plans every 10 years with planners, and I think this is what you are speaking about. And if you see how that cascades down to the action plans, what happens? So I was asking, really, as architects, have we thought deeply about this? Are we ready to struggle and fight about these spaces and how we deal with them? And I immediately flipped to the other end of the world. I think I saw Kajiado recently decided that no more 50 by 100s. They said that's the problem. They're going to go to 40, 100 by 100s. But really the problem was that those 50 by 100 plots don't have architects participating in the subdivision and the design and the planning of those spaces. And so this density, it has mitigated majority of the affordable housing, because I think majority of the people live in 50 by 100s in this town, yet we did not participate in the conversation. It was below us. So really now what we are saying is, as architects, we really need to wake up and begin to understand this advocacy space and begin to say, in addition to this plupa, where is a very clear urban design code? Where is a proper revised building code, and so that the building code is not about fighting? Is my time okay? Because I'm getting excited. And some of the things I'm wondering is, when I'm talking about, I know I was with some planners and they were saying, oh, you need to do zoning, and I'm currently an advocate of no zoning. I know that suddenly begins to shock several people. That's when it's talking about controversy. But I'm saying we need to move necessarily away from use-based zoning to form-based zoning, where we are really talking about what's the form and character of an area, so that you can plan for the density in advance. Yeah. Many people say the trouble with Nairobi is that there's no planning. In fact, Ati said unplanned developments, and I told her no. What we have are bad plans very well implemented. And if you have a bad plan very well implemented, it's worse than no plan. Yeah? And that fault is really sitting with us. And I think that's the space that we want to begin to occupy. So are you guys ready to wake up and do the work, to get into a little bit of the politics, to get into the advocacy space, to understand how to write policy, because this policy benefits all. The trickle back will then come back to you later. Yeah. I think I'm going to stop there with one final thing. This one really disturbed me, because I also am a landscape architect, I'll whisper, and I advocate for them in other spaces very greatly. And you mentioned parks and society as a whole. And I just happened to be in Sweden speaking about just public realms. And I will say it that I was invited by Architects Sweden for a joint conference, Sweden, Nairobi. But the Nairobi people did not invite me, but that's a different thing. So was walking through and I walked into this park and I saw this little sign saying, this park is used by this school on Monday through Friday between this time and this time. Please respect their time. And I suddenly understood, hold on, this is a public park. This is a school. It doesn't use the park all the time. We're asking about green spaces. How come we're not able to get these relationships? We wall all our public spaces. Then I went to the city hall, walked through, took lovely pictures. And there's a picture of in the county government office that has always disturbed me. One of these days I'll publish them because I take them hiding because I'm a bit of a coward. While I'm controversial, I don't want to go take a picture snapping. But our county hall is fenced. Remember, I'm saying I walked through the one in Sweden. Ours is fenced. But the picture I keep taking is one written right next there. No idling. And I always stop there and wonder, what does this mean exactly? This is my county hall. I might have nothing to do. Where better to do it than in front of this space? And really, it's the beginning. I know there's going to be a long struggle with security and all that, but really it will start with us advocating. It will start at the top with the county. I've been struggling to think, how can we create a proper public plaza around that? Because once the counties say that there's a public space for everybody that is owned by you to defend, more of us can begin to cascade those thoughts down. So the important thing here is, as architects, if you have nothing to do and you're going to idle, let us go and idle outside the county office and advocate for a proper public space. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Arthur. I think this is the first time that he has actually articulated himself in a way that we all understand. But I will refer back to something that Senior told us on Friday, those of us who met with him. Sometimes you just have to stop and listen. I have never really listened to you. Today I have. So I think with that, I think we shall round up this session because I can see the timekeeper is giving us the bombastic side eye. So we shall thank you very much for giving us the audience. I hope whatever discussions we brought forth have enriched your intellect and your presence here this evening. Asanteni sana.
Thank you very much, Ati. Thank you for all the panelists for the great talk. Thank you, Mwalimu Kungu, for telling us architecture is to solve a problem. But I was thinking, the architect who designs a bar, what is he solving? Designs a bar, what problem is he solving? Thank you, Lim Shiri, for always telling us that we have to get the right people for the right job. And for Erin, for reminding us that we are always, our interns delegate work upwards. Kedogo is my classmate. I get very surprised he's so serious. He's part of a group that refused to sit an exam. I find it very ironic. For Arthur, thanks for telling us about Kaoleshwa. I'm not so sure you are telling us that you are not invited in Nairobi, or the emphasis was that you are invited in Sweden. Thank you very much, the panelists. We have our artists here. There's some artwork we have there. Please pass by. and look for my artists Emmanuel Obado, Alan Kioko, and Solomon Luvai. Please, let's support our young boys. As we prepare for our keynote speech, PLO, karibu sana. Na kuomba, Kiswahili changu ni kibaya. Kibovu. I was told about Kiswahili that it was born in Tanzania, it got sick in Kenya, and then it died in Uganda. Okay, kaugua. Ikazikwa Kongo. Karibu, Pielo.
Can you hear me well? I'll not speak for very long, but I've caused to be distributed a poem by Khalil Gibran. That is one of the most important poets. Seldom read. He's a Lebanese-American poet, and I've asked this gracious lady, Irene, to read the poem poetically. Read it poetically.
Please note, I have been warned sternly. The poem that I have been asked to read poetically is Fear by Khalil Gibran. It is said that before entering the sea, a river trembles with fear. She looks back at the path she has traveled from the peaks of the mountains, the long, winding road crossing forests and villages. And in front of her, she sees an ocean so vast that to enter, there seems nothing more than to disappear forever. Whereas there is no other way. The river cannot go back. Nobody can go back. To go back is impossible in existence. The river needs to take the risk of entering the ocean, because only then will fear disappear. Because that's where the river will know it's not about disappearing into the ocean, but of becoming the ocean.
Khalil Gibran is, in my view, one of the most important poets ever to have come out of any part of the world. And I know many poets. And architecture is poetry in concrete. And that is the essence of architecture. As I grow older and have the opportunity of sharing my thoughts with fellow men and women, and particularly Africans, my mind wanders. What is architecture? I have no doubt in my mind that many, or 80% of the population here, have not read the Mahabharata. How many of you here have read the Mahabharata? Because C.J. Raghupalachari, who has summarized the Mahabharata, says he or she who has not read the Mahabharata has read nothing. So if you have not read the Mahabharata, you have read nothing. The Mahabharata is the Hindu epic, written 3,000 years before the Christian Bible. It is 11 times longer than the Christian Bible, including the Apocrypha and the Deuterocanonicals. It's a great book which I commend to you. There is everything there, including architecture. And I mention this Because in the Mahabharata, if there is anybody who has read the Mahabharata, there is an occasion when a new city ought to be built, and an architect descends from heaven to create that city, Indraprastha. Yours is a divine calling. We who are here, who have been trained over the years, and our training is Eurocentric, and I dare say Anglocentric, we believe that architecture is something that was brought to us by the colonizers. There were architects in the Benin Empire, which was longer than the Great Wall of China. There were architects in the Monomotapa Empire in what is now Zimbabwe. There were architects in different parts of the continent of Africa. Those of you who come from where I come from, there is something that you must look at called Thimli Johinga. There is architecture there where they laid rock upon rock, rock upon rock, and it has withstood the test of time. There was architecture in Sudan and in Egypt. Pythagoras, whose theorem you use, and Euclid's, whose theory you use, came long after the pyramids were constructed. And if you look at the mathematics beyond and behind the pyramids, they are as amazing as they are exciting. The Dogons in Mali knew about architecture. So yours is an old profession. Is a profession that ought to be given a pride of place. Because the human being emerging from the caves always needed shelter, defined by circumstances and informed by environment. I grew up in this city when it was still a city, forget the name city. When there was planning, things have now gone awry. When we lived in the eastern part of Nairobi, and even the places that they called poor were properly planned. I remember those days fondly in the 1970s and 1980s. When Jericho and Kaloleni and Kunguni and all those places had parkings, were fumigated once every year. When there were social halls producing athletes, I remember those days. Today, when I go to the glorified slums that are to be found in Lavington, there'll soon be slums. In Zimmerman and other areas, I see how your profession has surrendered its soul to crooks and thieves. This is what has happened to Kenya. This is what has happened to many African cities. We are the fastest urbanizing continent in the world. And I invite you to visit any African city. They are progressively becoming slums. Whether it's in Nairobi, Kenya, which is one of the better African cities, or Bangui in Central African Republic, or Bamako, or Ouagadougou, or Lomé, or Lagos, and you will see what has happened to us. And my good friend and contemporary architect Philip Kungu, not Kungu, Kungu, said it so very clearly that architecture is not just about the building that you design, but the environment. Today, we live in a city, Nairobi, where the last major sewerage project undertaken, I know one is being undertaken today, was many years ago. And we never care where we dispose of our solid and unsolid waste. All the rivers in Nairobi are polluted beyond levels that are acceptable anywhere in the world. My good friend talked about his plight when he goes to the Nairobi City County, which is peopled by individuals who are semi-illiterate, let's be direct, who want to assess your designs. And if they don't move, you can't move. Those are the people who now determine how your profession is undertaken. When you have designed a building, some individual who has no knowledge is the one who has been given the authority to determine whether it's right or wrong to do so. And it's not only in Nairobi, it's now replicated 47 times over through the devolved systems. What Kenya has succeeded in doing is devolving mediocrity. And that we have done very successfully. And the professions have become silent and are becoming silent, and what we do is to grumble in forums such as this, where they are not present. So we'll have a forum such as this next year at another place. They do not know what we are doing. They are unmoved and unshaken. What must we do to open their eyes, to remove the scales of their eyes, and to melt the wax of their ears? This is how I understand this initiative of young architects. And youth is relative. They say they are 20 and they are young. That is an oxymoron. But that is understandable. What I hear the young people in your profession saying is that there is a reason and a time to do something about what is happening to our country and to our continent. When you think about architecture in Kenya, you must not be so myopic as to think about Kenya. We are now moving in the direction of East African integration. Are you thinking about what is going to happen in the 10 East African countries? How your architecture is going to be relevant in South Sudan, in Mogadishu, in Kinshasa, in Bujumbura, in Arusha, in Kampala, in Nairobi, Kenya, in Mwanza, in Tanzania, in Kigali, in Rwanda. This is how you must think. And this assembly that we have this evening must be such a one as that energizes the youth. And I'm using the word youth very deliberately. And informs the older ones that there is need for a symbiotic relationship whose only agenda is to ensure that our country moves in the right direction. You architects know better than I that almost anything between 50 and 65% of settlements in Nairobi are informal. To mean that there is no formal architectural involvement other than bush architecture. And I'm a bush architect. When we want to build our little huts in our rural homes, Philip here will tell you, there is something called the diagonal. I don't know what it meant. But we had that diagonal where we built something which we divided into two, and we used some cheap cloth to divide the bedroom and the sitting room. And we were architects in our own right. But we are now thinking beyond that. You go to Kileleshwa now with an unaltered sewerage system, and in what was formerly a dwelling house for a single family, you now have 800 families. And you architects are there, demanding that you must be addressed as Architect Irene. The question is, going forward, how are you in an organized fashion going to move forward? My good friend said he was in Sweden. I went to school in Lund in southern Sweden. And you can see how they organize their affairs. You can see how when they want to alter their houses, it is a process. When we were a little younger, I know it is a dinner occasion, so I must not speechify. I'll conclude very shortly. But when we are a little younger, Philip here will remember that one's greatest claim to fame was that you lived in Buruburu. 349,000 Kenya shillings. And they had a shopping center, they had a garden, and all those beautiful places. You go to Buruburu now and see what has happened to Buruburu. You go to Umoja now. You go to Zimmerman now. You go to Golden Gate now. You go to Plainsview now. You go to Lavington now. You go to Kileleshwa now. And you see the slums that are emerging in that space. You hear our government shouting at the very loudest about these housings that are coming up. Beyond the populism, where is the professional? Where are the professionals? And that is how I understand this association of young architects, who I believe going forward will raise their voices, even if they cannot be heard at their most eloquent. The voices of good and reason must always be alive and well. This is the whole essence of it. So this to me is an occasion for reflection and introspection, so that the profession does not think that it is sterile and disabled. This is your time to rise up and commune with other professions, and to tell Kenya and Kenyans, and the political Kenyans particularly, that the country is in danger. Today, you and me know that in the next few years we'll not have potable water in Nairobi. All the aquifers in Nairobi are depleted. When you are doing your architecture, are you remembering the water? When you are doing your architecture, are we remembering how we are going to dispose of plastic? The country claims that it had disbanded plastic, but you and me know that plastic is alive and well. You and me know that we have Nairobi River, Kirichwa Ndogo, Kirichwa Kubwa, and all these rivers polluted above any other river in the world. That is a fact. It will take billions to clean the rivers in Nairobi. In the next 10 years, we'll not have no potable water in Nairobi. I do not know which water you are consuming, but Coca-Cola is buying all waters in the world. I don't know whether you have bought Aquamist, but they will shortly. They have just bought Keringat. So, brethren, I come here as a visitor. The duty of a visitor is that he has sharp eyes. He is capable of seeing the cobwebs which you thought were part of your furniture. So I'm telling you things that ordinarily you would not see because you are architects. And I hope and believe that you will use this organization and this occasion to do that which is good and right. There is a tribe or an ethnic group in Malawi called the Chewa. In Zambia they are called the Nyanja. And among the Nyanja they say that more important than our children are our children's children. So when you think, don't think about your children. In the next 100 years, you and your children will be upstairs. We think about our children. What do we want to bequeath to them? A functioning society. When you are an architect, what do you want to be remembered for? As I conclude, many of you here have gone for benchmarking tours. I want to ask you, which benches have you been benchmarking on? We just sit on them without marking on them. The question was asked, what are we teaching and how are we teaching at our universities? When my good friend Sylvia was making her remarks, she talked about hearts. And I and Philip very quickly went into a tete-a-tete, during which we said, but our hearts perhaps not the more preferred for Africa, because our architecture is Eurocentric rather than Afrocentric. When you go to South Africa, they now are using grass thatch. Perhaps is that what we need? Rather than ceiling boards which provides a bedroom and sitting room for birds? Our architecture must be Afrocentric, sensitive to our realities. So we may marvel about all these, but relevance to our environment is at the very heart of our architecture going forward. Which brings me to the question that is alive today. You young architects who are present here today, in the presence of much older architects, and somebody talked about mentoring and talked about three things. The first thing that he talked about, that you must have those above you who by dint of experience can guide you. And there is no school that has been created for experience, because experience must be experienced. He or she who is experienced makes the claim that I have gone through this path. I have stepped on landmines, and I am guiding you that you may never step on those landmines. The next and the second person that he talked about are your peers. Those who are your contemporaries, in whom and with whom you have positive competition. Those who are walking the same journey with you, and they are telling you and they are competing with you, and when you are slow they make you faster. Regard them. And those who are below you, who are looking up to you in the manner of speaking, when mother cow is chewing, baby cow is watching. They are watching how you do things, and they are looking at you. This evening, I see mentors, I see mentees, and see others who are supporting potential mentees. Choose you now which direction you shall choose. And I conclude on a spiritual note, because spirituality is very essential. And I'll cross over to all religions and even those who are not believers. If you care to read the Bible, those of you who claim to be Christian, because I now no longer know those who are Christians, but those who claim to be Christians, I want you to go and read the book of the prophet Joshua, chapter 24, verses 24. When the Israelites have crossed over and they are going over to the promised land, and Joshua tells them, remember, before you crossed the river, you worshipped other gods. And when you crossed the river, you worshipped other gods. Choose you now whom you shall worship. The gods of your forefathers or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you dwell. As for me and my house, we shall serve the Lord. And for those of you who are Muslims, when the prophet leaves Mecca and goes to Medina, which is called Medinat ul-Nabi, which is called Medina in ordinary terms, he fights many battles, and he tells them, you must always have friends who will guide you at the right time. And for those of you who are Hindus, I invite you to read the conversation between Arjuna and Krishna at the Battle of Kurukshetra. Your duty is to act. You have no decision, or you have no capacity to determine the results of your actions. So today, I ask you to act, to do that which is good and right, because it is good and right. As to whether you are right or wrong, that is a verdict of history. You know, many people sometimes tell you, you are successful. I tell them, I'm not successful. The question as to whether you are successful is a verdict of history. When you are dead and gone, that is when historians in their cool, calculated moments will be able to say, behold, there lived a great architect. Philip Kungu was a great architect. Sylvia Mweni was a great architect. History will say that. So today, architects who are present here, I'm inviting you to stop living in silos. Join with us. Those of us who are lawyers, those of us who are engineers, those of us who are surveyors, those of us who are near-dwellers, that we may do it for our country, Kenya, for our continent, Africa, and for humanity. When we do that, then the world will fondly remember us and will say with Jibril that we have no fear, because fear paralyzes, because fear undermines. I'm today therefore urging you to be courageous without being reckless and without being suicidal. May you have a good evening, and I hope that wine will be served shortly.
Let's have another round of applause for PLO. a couple of things I've learned from PLO today. I should not speechify. And secondly, the next time I introduce myself, I'll call myself, my profession, I'm a poet of concrete. Before I invite Sylvia to give a gift to PLO, I want to recognize the presence of Honorable Jack Wanami Wamboka, the MP for Bumula. You can salimia watu. So Sylvia.
Please, another round of applause for our good professor and my friend. I'm sincerely hoping that you will not go back the same person today as an architect. That is really my sincere hope. That was a real clarion call to us to act. So I want to call Vicky. Come here, and Ati, come here. And obviously you can see why I'm calling these two lovely architects, because we want to gift our good professor for giving us his time. We don't take it for granted, yeah? He's a very sought after speaker, so for him to give us our time, we are very grateful, Professor, and because we know your other wishes that you have somewhere along the way, thank you very much.
I'm not a public servant. So even if you give him me $1 million, it doesn't matter. But let me, for the sake of good order, oh, these are very beautiful things. Oh, beauty is in small packages. So thank you very much, the architects. God bless you. My only wish is that they would have sent me something. With the M-Pesa is now 500,000. Thank you very much. God bless you. Thank you.
All right, Solo, you can take it over.
Thank you for that. I'm now going to invite Architect Gono to introduce the EXCO. Where's Architect Gono? But before that, dinner and wine is going to be served. So please don't leave. Before you leave, there's a little bit something for us to bite. Thank you, Gono. He's also my classmate and he also refused to sit an exam.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, architects, colleagues, professionals. It's such an honor to be here and to be in the presence of such great minds. My duty is very simple. It's just to introduce the members of the Executive Committee for the Architects Alliance. It's been around for a short while, but there's been a lot of work going on. It's been also a big learning experience. One of the things we've been doing is going through some of the bills that regulate and in the space in which we operate, and we've learned a lot. Some of the things that affect your practice are in the law that you never read. So I welcome you to take time as we've been welcomed by our eminent scholar, Professor Lumumba. I know in some other countries we are told we are very lucky to have Professor Lumumba as our citizen. So thank you very much. I'll introduce one who needs no introduction. Sylvia Kasangas. She's already been mentioned. She's actually our president. In our committee, there are several. I hope the EXCO members are nearby, so if you could come so that as you're introduced, people see you. I'll introduce Mushiri, Architect Mushiri Waitito. You've seen him before. He's in the Partnerships Committee. Architect Dennis Osidiana is chair of the Home of Architects. Architect Michael Odindo, Home of Architects. Architect Arthur Adair. Arthur was here, is he around? Arthur Adair is in the think tank. Architect Terry Odula Ikere. Yes, Chair Advocacy. Architect Irene Agutu. She's in think tank. Chair. She's also in advocacy. She's in everything, I think. All right. Architect Winnie Ngumi in advocacy. Architect Vicky Karuga, administration and finance. Architect Tom Sitati is currently out of the country, but he's present, I think, online. Tom Sitati is in admin and finance. Architect Maidya Musunga is not well, so he's sent his apologies, but he's, I'm sure, following us online. He's in partnerships. Architect Keegan Kega in advocacy, and he's also out of the country, so he's probably following us. Architect Paul Ochieng, Home of Architects. Architect Arthur Oyugi, think tank. Architect Dr. Joseph Kedogo, he's been here before. He's also in think tank. And finally, myself, Emmanuel Gono, in think tank. Thank you very much. We appreciate all of you who have joined us today, and we hope more of us will join. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gono. Now I shall invite the escorts remain standing for the launch of TAA. The keynote speaker, please. Keynote speaker, not speaker. Thank you. Thank you. For the escort, please take a seat. I don't think we are as enthusiastic as the EXCO. I think we need to give a round of applause for organizing this thing and a loud cheer to them. To close off, I would like to invite my colleague Lee Mushiri to give a vote of thanks for the day. Karibu.
Where I come from, we don't say mambo ni matatu. Nasema mambo ni matio. I don't know why that becomes 2 and this becomes 3. It's a different interpretation of culture. My first is just to let Mhesh say just one word. I know politicians can talk, but this man is like we told you, we are rolling up our sleeves and getting out there in a way that we need to change how architects are perceived, to change the laws from deep inside. And this particular gentleman, who happens to be a very dear friend of mine, has assisted us in doing 1 or 2 things already. We'll be able to articulate to you so that PLO does not say that we are just talkers and we become doers. Mhesh, just one word.
Keynote speaker, my good friend PLO, architects, my brother Mushiri, I've seen a couple of friends. Good evening. Coming after speaker such as PLO is a challenge, so I'll be very brief. My name is Wanami Wamboka, MP Bumula constituency, Chairman, Public Investments Committee in charge of education and governance in the National Assembly. Currently, I'm sponsoring a bill that is going to set the framework for all the things you've been talking about here. We want to entrench it in law so that you are not harassed by mediocres or what PLO would say, semi-literate people. So I do not have much to say. I must say I'm a product of architects. When I went to run for elections, my elections campaigns were run by architects. I'm seeing most of them, Obange, Douglas, Professor here, Engineer Nalianya, headed by, we call him chairman. We have a small grouping of people who discuss many other things, not necessarily important things. But he is our head. It's called the Chairman's Lounge. They came together, they said, now we must stop whining as professionals in this town. We must have our own voice of reason in the National Assembly. And one evening we said, let's give it a try. Then we went down, they were in Bumula, they gave money, and what they were able to do in Bumula has never been done again. You may not know, I'm the only Azimio MP in Bungoma County. Yeah, so it was kind of a wave. Everyone, including the president, keeps on asking me, how did you manage it? Architects and engineers. And that's why I offer myself, ladies and gentlemen, this evening, that I'm your instrument, I'm a vessel through which you will achieve your legislative agenda as architects. So thank you so much. Mushiri, thank you so much for inviting me. Asanteni sana. I'm looking forward to the wine, if not whiskey. Thank you so much and God bless you. Asante sana.
The other thing, as just before I give my vote of thanks, as architects and the TAA in particular, when we formed the TAA, our agenda was just to come back and give back to society. And we coalesced around our age grouping. I've had PLO says that young architects, we're not entirely young. young at heart. And indeed, some things may have been misinterpreted to mean that we were loggerheads with the larger architectural fraternity. I would like to invite my senior, Philip, just to say 2 words about our whole engagement with AAK. He had some very, very serious words of wisdom. He told me something which I've never quite realized. What is happening in the world today? That we listen to respond. We're not listening to hear other people's views. And as architects, this is very, very central to when you're designing for your clients, that we don't listen to what the client is telling you. You are busy already designing, you know, yeah? And I'd just like him to give 2 words, with your kind permission, sir.
Thank you very much, Architect Mushiri. I must say that I am standing here out of what I believe is a calling. And I say this with very, very clear conscience. And why do I say that? If you are a member of the 6th floor, or you are a resident of the 6th floor, I always tell those whom I meet that there are only 2 things I owe you in this life. I owe you truth and wisdom. I need to speak the truth because at my age, it demands that that's the only currency that I should be trading in. And I owe you wisdom because in my journey of life, there are very many mistakes that I have made. It's not bad to make mistakes, but it's the lessons that you learn from the mistakes that you have made. That is called wisdom. So I just want to share with you 1 or 2 things, some thoughts, which I thought it is important. I must declare my interest. I am a member of the I wanted to say. It's very important that in growth you experience sometimes some turbulence, some strong winds that hit you this way and that way. And why do I say this? In 1990s, we had the QSs. They were agitating within AAK, saying they felt the AAK was not serving them well. There were all sorts of things, and they threatened to break away from AAK. I was asked to head a task committee to look at some of these things. And the view then was that we must kick these guys out of this. We want an association for ourselves. Later on, that task force got this famous name, the Kungu Commission, because at that time, PLO, we had a lot of commissions in Kenya. But that led to AAK being what it is today. And in the very same vein, I see the same things, right? We reach a certain point in life when people are agitating for this, that, or the other. There is nothing wrong. Students of the Bible will tell you that in the early growth of the Christian religion, Christianity, and if you read the book of the Corinthians, St. Paul's to the Corinthians, it talks about the challenges of the growth of the Christian church and how it started even with the disciples. They were fighting amongst themselves. Fighting is not bad if it is going to help us to grow. So that's a message I bring to you, that we should have no fear at all. I know there are very many colleagues who are invited from AK and they said, we can't come, that is a rebel group. I think that is the height of mediocrity. I think it's the height of being silly. Why? Why? Because in this world there are very many voices. You must learn to listen to the other voice. So I came to listen. All right? So it's important that we engage. And I came because I wanted to hear what this TA is all about. After that, I can decide whether I want to be in TA or not. But that's not the issue. The issue is that you engage and you listen. When you listen, you might get the message that they are trying to pass along. And I told those whom I met that we learn our lessons. And as we move forward, is to see how best some of these lessons can help us grow as a profession. In fact, even as a Kenyan, there are too many discordant voices. Everybody wants to have their show and thinks that theirs. So I even told them that look at the areas in which we can complement one another, right? In any case, the world with its 7 billion people is big enough, is too big for even just one religion. Am I right, PLO? And that's why we must have all these other voices. So I encourage TAA, please engage. There are people who will condemn you. There are people who will have no time for you. And I joked with them the other day that unajua ukitongoza msichana, ukiona msichana mzuri kama Winnie hapa, siku ya kwanza Winnie and I come a long, long way, so I can afford to enjoy those kind of liberties with her. If you talk to her, anakuangalia anasema, she has no time for you. Then you persist. Persistence is the thing. You persist. Alafu anakuambia, ni nini unataka? Si useme haraka nisikie ile unataka. Knowing the Luo I am, you can't put a good Luo down. You try a third time. And the third time you try, she might say, ulikuwa unasemaje? You win this battle slowly. So what am I saying? My message to you is that we must be tolerant. There is nothing that we are looking for in this society more than tolerance. And it's the intolerance that is killing this society. So I urge that even as you try and engage your colleagues in other spheres, don't lose hope, keep engaging them. One day, if they don't see it, they will see that there may be something in this. And we must work together. So this is my message that I wanted to give to you. Last, because Lumumba PLO challenged us with some little ninis of wisdom from the Bible. And you know, when you sit between two professors, it does get to you a bit. I leave you with some words of wisdom from the book of Proverbs 3:27, and it says this, it may be applicable to you. Do not withhold good from those whom it is due when it is in your power to act. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Ya mwisho. The TA is running, needs you guys. You saw 18 guys who stood in front of you. These guys we've been meeting every week without fail. Persian style. First, when we are sober, to test an idea, and later when we are drunk, to make sure that the idea was perfect. So we need you. There are application forms. They are all digital. Vicky and her team have developed that. Osidiana, Home of Architects. We need you guys. We need you guys to join up so that we can be able to move our agenda forward. To the suppliers who are out there, who have assisted us today, want to tell you this. These are all seasoned architects. We want to form partnerships, things that will grow, that will be able to do a lot of research for your products, give you up-to-date feedback so that you're able to sell your products and move them forward. The vote of thanks to the Most High who grants us the gift of life. Thank you for making this occasion a resounding success. To PLO Lumumba, Professor, thank you so much for gracing our occasion. I wish you were my teacher of history of architecture. I would not have become a professor in supplementary exams. And thank you for teaching Solo a bit of English. To my fellow panelists who came and gave the ideas here, Arthur today was very tame. He did not, the fact that no one threw rocks at him is a very good statement that today we are hosting a very mature crowd. To the EXCO, brilliance, verve, and honor wrapped in a Kenyan flag, I salute you guys. You guys have made me know what service is. To my president, she didn't like being called that. Sylvia, senator, architect, arbitrator, very multi-talented. She made me realize why the guys from Cumberland have always elected ladies before. And behind that voice is a lot of steel. She has taken a lot of flack from all quarters for this very good advocacy that she has put through. The heads of various committees, Home of Architects, Admin, Think Tank, I know we've been killing each other with a lot of messages, strong messages, but nothing which is good ever comes easy. You guys have given your best. To our hosts, Space and Style, and their gracious CEO, Winnie today have had 2 marriage proposals. And it just goes to show how good a person you are. Thank you so much for having this space. To the event organizers, Vicky, Irene, Prezo, and yours truly. I've learned how to throw a Jaluo bash with a Kikuyu budget. To our suppliers and partners who have supported us in cash and in kind, thank you so much. To our guests, Mahesh, when he says that we fought during his campaign, fought almost literally with him, he wanted to go this direction and we tell him, no, you're going this direction. But we held his hand and we fought an onslaught for a long, long time. Thank you for promising us that you will carry our legislative agenda. To Architect Senior, Philip, your words of wisdom have shone through. And thank you for your many years of service. A lot of the guys sitting here actually you made them cry, but that's a whole story we can have over a glass of wine. To the Secretariat, Maxi and Mercy, thank you for being such gracious people in spite of the hiccups and hostile invitees. We are eternally grateful. To all architects here, long suffering. If you made it here, it's because you are destined to. You made it through 6 years of insomnia, harsh grits, bad diets, alcohol abuse. You made it through the Moi days, when a tender to redesign a gate and you will have 40 architects, firms tendering for this. And through the heady days of Kibaki, and now when one hand of the taxman is deep in your hand, in your pockets. We thank you for coming. We know most of you lied to your wives that you have gone for fellowship. And I know you will meet a lot of your old classmates. So if you go back home dead drunk, you can say that you are with PLO. To you all, and if I have missed saying thank you to you, I've remembered one to our suppliers, the guys who have given us, who have made this event a success, the media guys, Nick and your guys, Raymond, thank you for working till very late, and thank you for your diligent service. A thief is one who finds things before they are lost. The TAA is very happy to have stolen your time to make a difference before all is lost. I wish you all the best. May you be slow in choosing your friends and even slower in changing them. May God bless you abundantly, and the TAA thanks you for coming from the bottom of our hearts. Asanteni sana. Solo had made a small presentation as to where we will proceed from here. I think you need to just come and close that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Lee. Thank you for the eloquence. Before we close, I need to acknowledge the presence of Honorable Jane Chebaibai, Chairman of Bomas. Karibu sana. And one more announcement. The ESCO should remain here for a press briefing after this. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for making this day. And there's food, and there's a lot of drinks. I think Mushiri has offered to buy drinks. I've proposed it and I've seconded it myself. Thank you very much.